You want to cook chicken breast on your griddle, but you don't want it to be dry and stringy. Here are 4 tips for juicy, tender chicken breast every time. We'll start inside with our first tip, which is to even out the chicken. Now there's 3 ways you can do this. First, you can butterfly the chicken by placing it flat on a cutting board, then use a sharp knife to cut horizontally through the thickest part of the breast. Technically, butterflying doesn't go all the way through, but I am going all the way through. And then now you have 2 pieces of chicken which are thinner and relatively even to each other. Second, we'll make cutlets. I saw this on America's Test Kitchen. You cut it in half, and the thinner tail end of the chicken breast is fine. The thicker side we will again cut horizontally into 2 more cutlets, so you'll end up with 3 total. If you want to pound these out, you can to make them perfectly even, and the same is true for the butterflying. Finally, you can just pound out the breast from the beginning. You don't have to cut it at all if you don't want to. If you have a mallet, that's great. If not, you could grab a heavy pot or a cast iron here. And again, you're just trying to flatten it all out so it cooks evenly. Now is when you can marinate it. My lazy one is just Italian dressing. It's always on hand, and I'll just throw it in a bag for a couple hours or overnight with the chicken. Or you could just do some salt and pepper, which is what I did. If you do salt and pepper or a seasoning, I like to do it high. You can see my hands out of the screen. That helps to get an even coat on the chicken. Our second tip is getting proper griddle temperature. I cook different foods at different temps on the griddle, and I've made a chart you can get for free if you sign up for my newsletter in the description below. I like to cook chicken between 375 and 400 degrees, and the best way to ensure that temp on your griddle is by using an infrared thermometer. I like this 2-in-1 from ThermoPro. I honestly think every griddle owner should own an infrared thermometer. I use mine on every cook I do. I already had some frozen potatoes down. I threw those on the griddle when I first turned it on and spread them out thin. Then I just didn't touch them for like 20 minutes and flipped regularly after that. I also put down some onions with seasoned salt and pepper that I did for about 3 to 4 minutes before the chicken went down to give them a little head start. Now that we're at temp, I will place a decent amount of oil on the griddle and cook for 5 to 6 minutes, the chicken breast. You can see that I have both the butterfly breast and the cutlets down. Again, we flipped these after about 6 minutes and we got a pretty good color. I'm really happy with the way they look. I moved the chicken to the side after I flipped them and put down some sliced mushrooms right where the majority of the chicken drippings were. Added 2 tablespoons of butter, seasoned salt, pepper, then mixed the onions in with the mushrooms. After another 4 to 5 minutes, my chicken should be done for a total cook time of roughly 10 minutes. But again, this is just an estimate, which is why I always cook chicken to the internal temperature, not to a set time period, which is actually our third tip. And that's to get yourself a probe thermometer to check the internal temperature of your chicken and really any large pieces of meat you're cooking. So I want to know the griddle temp and the internal temp, which again is why I like the 2-in-1 from ThermoPro. I actually have a 20% discount code in the description if you want to get yourself one of these thermometers. On to our final tip, which is to pull the chicken off the heat a little early. It's ideal to cook chicken breast to 165 degrees, but it will continue cooking after you pull it off the griddle. So the 4th tip is to pull it before it gets to that temperature. You can pull your chicken breast at 160 degrees or even 155 degrees, and I promise as it rests for like 5 minutes, the internal temperature will rise up to a safe 165 degrees. So when the chicken is done, I'm taking it off the heat but placing it on the onions and peppers to rest to continue to 165. And I'll check each piece individually and then pull them when necessary off the griddle, because each one could finish at a different time. Oftentimes people cook to 165 or above, and then it just continues to rise in temperature as it rests, and that's how you end up with that really dry, stringy chicken. So let's review. As I put this on a fancy white plate I bought just to impress strangers on the internet, you get your chicken breast to an even thickness by cutting or pounding it out. Make sure your griddle is between 375 and 400 degrees. Don't cook the chicken breast by time, but rather by a specific temperature. Time is all relative, man. It doesn't exist. I'm just kidding. It's not that type of YouTube channel. But anyways, the final tip is to pull the chicken at 155 or 160, and it will continue cooking while it rests and reach the desired temperature of 165, which is safe, but also not drier than the Sahara Desert. I hope this was helpful, and again, the free temp chart is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and keep on griddling, friends.